welcome back to the 9016. My guest today is another good friend of mine. He's an old colleague with a degree in product design, and he was immensely helpful in providing feedback for the podcast. So please welcome my friend Casey Munro.
Home Audio Entertainment.
9016 Radio.
The show for artists of all kinds.
Sit down and relax. Enjoy the music.
Your turn.
All right. Cheers, Casey.
Hey, cheers.
Thanks for coming on.
That's
Appreciate you sparing your time.
Got to help out where I can.
So, I mean, all things considered recently, what was life? I mean, I feel like we've moved way past it now, but lockdown, what were you doing at that time? What was it like for you? Because were you working?
Yeah, I was working right up until lockdown.
Yeah.
But then just with the construction industry, it's not... The word was that it was going to be pretty much a full lockdown for us because there's nothing really we could do, you know, dealing with clients or whatever. There was nothing we could do face-to-face or in big groups. So as soon as it came into the full level 4, it was just 4 weeks at home.
Yeah, sweet. That was the same for me, man. It was like, thank God, actually, not, of course, exactly a holiday, but just time to be like, just chill out for a wee bit.
Lots of people I've spoken to refer to it as a holiday, even though that doesn't do justice to what the virus was and the people who were affected by it. But so many of us were like, I had no direct contact to the virus itself. Like I didn't even know a person that was affected by it. Like, you know,
I don't think many people did.
No, exactly.
It wasn't that
so
prevalent.
it was almost like a holiday.
Yeah, exactly.
Just at home. Worst holiday though.
Yeah, I mean, a holiday's probably not the right word for it, but it's like an internal holiday.
Exactly.
It's time to just like think about what you're doing with your life. Like that was pretty much what it was for me. That first week was just like, luckily the weather was nice, so it wasn't just like you're in a slump. You could just be at home and be like, right, what can I actually do to fill in a day now? You sort of get into your mental...
First few days were like sitting around, you know, up to nothing. But then when you actually went, well, I know it's going to be 4 weeks. Every day is going to be like this. If you just pick, even if it was one thing, it changed the whole day.
Yeah,
you know, sleep in for sure, but then get out and do something around the house.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know about you, but for me, my sleep cycle was pretty good due to my work routine. So having those times to actually sleep in, I was like, oh, cool. It's nice to actually get like a sort of a week's worth of sleep in.
Sure.
But then it got to the point where it was like, you start to get back into old routines, and the more you sleep in, the more you sort of become like, you start feeling shit about yourself and the fact that you don't have anything to do, you kind of just get in your own head again. So I eventually started getting up earlier again, implementing things to actually make a day of what you could.
Exactly. And then it's a bad cycle because you're getting up later, so you're going to bed later, but you're not actually achieving anymore. You know, the hours just shift. It's the same amount of hours. You just pushed it out.
But it's weird how like quickly a day can seem, or how long a day can seem, like if you're not actually working or doing something like that. Yeah.
And as you said, it was a good chance to like focus on yourself a bit. Like I didn't really do anything amazing, but if I exercised, for example, that changed the whole day.
Yeah,
you know,
for
like
sure.
Even maybe I slept in, but if I got out and did exercise first before eating or before anything, it actually changed the rest of the day. I was more productive the rest of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so key, man. And that's something I implemented, was actually doing some exercise, because one of the talking points about the virus was, you know, it affects people that are sort of immune compromised, and obviously that's sort of in more severe cases. But as a general sort of rule of thumb, I suppose, like if your immunity is not great, it's probably going to affect you a wee bit more. So I was like, well, I mean, the chances of it really getting to me are fairly slim, but if I can at least implement some exercise, which I hadn't done before, it's going to be of any benefit. And regardless of the virus, like exercise should be good for you anyway. And like I say, the weather was so good that I was like, every morning, once I'd had my wee sleep and run, every morning was like, right, I'm going for a walk, and I'd just go and walk around anyway because there's no time constraints, so you just go and do it. It was great.
It was, because where we were, I'm right next to Sinclair Golf Course. Yeah. So it was a good chance, like, obviously no one's using that. So I bumped into the groundskeeper even a couple of times, and he was even stoked that people were out just enjoying the grounds, walking. Like, it was awesome.
Yeah,
like, just utilize your local area, which you don't tend to do normally.
I think that's one of the key things that's come out of this, is just appreciating where you are and like the things that you do have to do, because it was the perfect excuse for anyone to go, oh, okay, well, I'll go and do that thing I've already said I've done. Like, that was exactly what it was for me. It was like, all right, now I've got an excuse to actually go out and go for a run or go for a walk or do whatever, you know, actually put a bit more time into things. So
did you get a chance to come to the studio?
I tried not to. I mean,
it was a bit touch and go there, whether you should leave. And,
and you know, the rule it was stay at home, and of course, like it's just me in here, but it was still like there are people that actually live in this building. Like one less person walking around.
And if everyone did that, then we'd have a problem.
Yeah, and I don't know that the other people here. Like I know a few people in the building, but again, like the people that live on the top floor, I don't know them, so someone else coming into it, I can't really trace back to anything.
Yeah,
so
the contact tracing.
Yeah, and also like I kind of had, I was talking to you before, I kind of ran out of resources. Like nothing was open for me to buy new stuff. I couldn't go down, of course, to buy anything. So I literally only had what I had at the time, and that got used up pretty quickly. So
I had the exact same problem. Like it was nothing important, but a couple of wee home jobs. I thought that last day of work, I thought, right, here's a couple of things I can do at home, little projects. And then you realize, well, I had to finish out that day. And then the next day we were straight into lockdown. And I'd been away the weekend before.
Yeah, right.
I was like, well, I can't get anything, no materials. I was going to put up some shelves, just normal shit. But it sucked. Like, and then I'd go out to the garage and rustle through stuff and see if I could put it together. And then you kind of lose a bit of confidence because you don't have the things that you're like, I can't just pop down to the shop and get that.
Exactly. And you start to realize that really quickly because that's so ingrained in everyone to just be able to go out and do anything whenever they want, and then you have to be like, oh shit, I can't even do that.
It makes you think on your feet a bit though. You get creative with what you have to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And cooking, it was the most, you don't realize how much cheap, not just fast food, but maybe just, snacks here and there or stopping at a truck stop or petrol station food, or when you don't have it, you realize, holy shit,
I have to make everything.
I have to make everything and think ahead. And I think it was awesome. It was like, it's probably healthy for people our age.
Yeah, definitely, man. One of the key things to starting a healthier diet is just being able to cook for yourself.
Totally.
Like no one can make KFC every night, like the way that it's actually made, So when you're actually making it, it's going to be at least slightly better. And the fact that you're doing it, it's more ingrained in you. You're more likely to acquire that as a tool.
And the habits that come out of it. Like I actually left it, and it was so much easier to drive past a place and go, oh, I'm not going to stop or get fast food. Or the last chance you get where you're like, oh, I don't know what to do, so I'll just get fast food. Maybe you'll go, oh, well, I'll just pop into the supermarket. And even if it's not a proper shop, but you get one or two things and you can make something at home.
Yeah, exactly.
I know heaps of people that the lockdown really changed that for them.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is crazy.
Did you find you were going to the supermarket often?
Yeah, more than normal, but it was probably partly as an excuse to get out of the house as well.
Yeah, for sure.
With two flatmates, we just thought, well, sometimes we went to the supermarket just because, it was a trip out, drove the long way home, It's a bit weird, but that's what,
that's the thing, you don't have anything to do.
Exactly.
You might as well.
And we went down, I'd walk way further than I'd ever walk and try and get down to the beach, where people said you couldn't go, but as long as it's still in your area, we just parked, it's only 10 minutes away from home. So it was awesome.
Yeah, I ended up being a wee bit pedantic about it all. And of course, a new global virus is around, you sort of go, oh, fuck, what the hell's going on? Yeah. So I ended up going, I think, twice during those 4 weeks and spending $200 on groceries just to get me through.
A mate that did the same. He went for the big shop instead, less trips, bigger shops. But
that's the thing, that's the only place you're realistically going to go where there is a risk of you finding it. Yeah. So it's like,
and even, I think that changed for me. Like, as I said, I was away the weekend coming into it. And when I was actually out of cell phone service too, I was in Central Otago. And when I left, it was sort of like, oh, this is something we should worry about. But, it's the rest of the world that's struggling with it. We should be wary of it, but really nothing. Yeah. And then I remember coming into Dunedin, 3 of us, and all our phones started going off, literally like beep, 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 beep. And we started checking, and it was like full lockdown because we'd been out of self-service. It was like basically returning to lockdown, and all 3 of us just looked at each other and went, this has changed, and it becomes real pretty quickly. Yeah. And I was thinking of it, how it affects me. And obviously, as you said, maybe I'm not at high risk, but then if I go somewhere, it's how it affects other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe and elderly grandparents and stuff. My grandparents were terrified, whether they should be or not, but you can't take that away from them.
Exactly.
You have to think about those people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is hard, and I mean, it's because it's new to everyone. You don't really know how to deal with it. No one knows. The government doesn't know what to do or how to say things, and people are expecting answers. And it's like this is the first time anything like this has really happened to this sort of extent. Like, no one really knows the ins and outs of it. Like, no one can say for sure what it's going to do to someone or how it's actually spread. Like, they're all just assumptions. So.
Exactly. And that's why these politicians, like, we've got so many goalposts, but we have nothing to compare it to, really. Right. Like, there's been viruses and stuff in the past, but, you know, we live in a modern civilization now. More people are moving around the world than ever has been before. It's completely different.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
You can't contain it the same way you could. And I hate hearing about how, you know, these politicians that say, oh, we've done everything right, and then everyone else criticizes them and stuff. It's like, you should be working on it together, not trying to pick who did the best job. You know?
Yeah, in a time like this, you feel like you sort of come together to a point because it's sort of laughing at, you know, world leaders that are doing things the right way. I think in our country is probably a prime example, just opposition parties sort of literally just making the opposite claim to whatever's been made. It's like, sure, you have to sort of be somewhat different to the party that's in power because you need to sort of have that leg up. But it's like, if you just start saying stupid shit, like against things that are working,
what's
it's
it
like,
achieving?
What is this achieving?
And that's a massive problem in this country, even though we're lucky that we don't have any bad politicians really on the scale of things. We're lucky, you know, centre left and centre right. But to have an opposition, you have to oppose the government that's in power.
Exactly.
So you're caught between a rock and a hard place. You know, Jacinda Ardern or whatever, she's done a great job with the virus. Of course she has. But some other politician has to come out and criticise her because if they don't criticise her, they agree with her.
And it's like, well,
you can't do that.
And if you feel the same way, I've already got that.
And that we live in a country where everyone pretty much has the same views. You know, there's no real drastic opinions.
No one's super right wing or super left wing. It's all fairly on the straight and narrow. Yeah,
which it's great, but it has its own problems as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not a political person. There's I sort of have a very small insight to things that happen and things that shouldn't be brought in. But again, in a time like this, it's pretty obvious when you've got the right leadership and when you've got other countries that you can compare it to and be like, okay, well, they didn't do what we did, and look at them. There's obviously something right in that, you know.
And I mean, you know, we all suffer the consequences of that as well, even though you might not feel directly, you know, what's happening in the States. But what happens there, the flow-on effects affect everyone.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
We're going to be, because of their stupid decisions, it'll affect us for, could be years.
Well, you're not going to want to go there for years. And God knows how long they're going to be in the state that they are now. Like, their population alone, like, just...
Oh, it's sad.
It's so bad.
It is. And you feel bad for the people. There's people there that are switched on, but the media doesn't do it any justice. You know, they just blow it up and it looks like an awful place to be.
That's the problem with the news, man, is the news it feels like they want to give you the bad news because that's what you're going to suck up. You know, it gets to a point like if you had a week, like a period of a week in the news where it was just all good news, like whatever example, it's all just like, oh, sweet, that's positive, great. You know, you sort of get bored with it. It's kind of like, well, everything's good. What do we have to worry about? But when there's like a hurricane that's hit the city or, you know, someone's died due to such and such, you go, and you want to read that thing. So the news is based around coming up with stories.
Totally. And these days it seems like the news is more about a headline or a, you know, like clickbait. You know,
exactly.
You can, even reputable news sources fall into that trap of headline catch media, you know, shock value. They'll shock you into some sort of attention. And then really when you dig deeper, there's no information there. They've brought you in with something that, you know, it's caught your eye. Then when you dig deeper, you go, actually, there's no reporting here. Or there's
nothing that's actually
here.
happened. No. That's happened to me numerous times. And listening to the radio as well, it's the same thing. I was talking to friend of mine recently about the radio and how they sort of produce them because it's sort of a dying media in a way. Like, I personally don't really listen to the radio at all, but just having it on in the car, they were talking about I think at the time it was something to do with a new case that had arrived here on the border again. But the way that they had sort of talked about it, they'd stretched it out so much that you are listening because you want to hear what they say, but at the end it's just useless information. It ends up being nothing.
And it's weightless. Like so many of that, I've caught like driving work vehicles where you get into it and it's like talkback radio. And it actually, it's the same. It's whether it's a dying media or whatever, but they're desperate. They're like this talkback radio, you know, people talking about traveling in their own country. And it's so like, that should be such a simple thing. It's like Kiwis should travel and enjoy, because we can't travel, we should spend money at home. And then they have all these conflicting opinions and arguments for nothing. You know, they're just wasting people's time.
Yeah.
Like getting callers to call in and give what their opinion is when, I mean, it's
No one
not
knows
always,
who that
yeah,
is,
exactly.
what opinion is that valid,
exactly. And they've got no weight to them. It's all just throwaway stuff, and then they'll, you know, hang up on someone because they don't agree with them.
Yeah,
but
exactly. And that having a radio show or running a newspaper or a magazine or whatever it is, like if there's nothing that happens in the news that day or that week, you've got to put a paper out. You've got to put something out. You've got to say something on the radio. You do have to just start saying some bullshit to fill in the time. You know, there are some slow news days, and you've got to be able to account for that. But
but that's where it should be filled with, like what you said, with positive stuff. You know, what change would that make if every time there was no news story, instead of looking for some bottle of the barrel like crap, put something positive out. Look for a positive, uplifting story, and maybe that'll affect how everyone feels.
Yeah, exactly. Surely there's always something going on. But I mean, in a time like the lockdown, for example, I mean, we're sort of spiraling back to that, but there's probably not much else. Like for the first time in probably my adult life, I was watching the news on a regular basis while the lockdown was going on, and that was literally like the entire context of the news up until like the sports, which was even COVID related as well, and then the weather. Yeah, like, it was literally just a COVID report, and it was like,
and we still haven't got out of that. I mean, that's the same thing as like even on site at work. Most of the conversations spiral back to the virus and the COVID and that, and it's like, I don't know if that's, you've got to be aware of what's happening in your neighborhood, but we're doing pretty well as a country. Like we should focus on the changes we're going to make now moving forward. And people still aren't, you know, we have got a lot to be positive about. We did a pretty good job, and we should focus on spending money locally and traveling around our own backyard. Like I've traveled around the world, and that's cool, but man, there's so much of New Zealand left to see, and I think everyone should do that.
Yeah, I think I took that phrase for granted, and I've never really had much of a travel bug, let alone within New Zealand.
Sure.
But I suppose, you do, now that there's sort of no choice again, it comes back to, I might as well do these things. At least for someone like me that doesn't really have that interest to go out and see the country or see the world or whatever it is, it's kind of like, well, you might as well do it now, and then sort of realise, okay, this is why people are talking about it, or this is what I have been missing out on.
Exactly, and I think there's so many New Zealanders that probably don't realise what they're missing out on.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm lucky a little bit. The little bit I've done has just been so rewarding. Like travelling around New Zealand, there's a reason people come from all over the world to come to New Zealand.
Sure.
And we forget that. We feel so small, but literally millions of people travel here every year to see our beautiful country, but we never do.
I'm a bit of a travel noob again. I haven't seen much of the country. Like I couldn't even tell you what the street 2 blocks from down from us is, you know, let alone where a certain part of New Zealand is. Yeah. And traveling would definitely help that, you know.
Totally. And I think you learn so much traveling as well. I'm the same. I've done a little bit of travel, but a lot of it's been safe. Yeah, for sure. So now I'm coming into a point in my life where I want to do travel or experiences.
Safe as in local?
Yes, or safe as in, you know, planned, and it's all...
You're not just spontaneously driving up to
exactly. Spontaneous travel is probably the best kind of travel. All your best memories and experiences are something you didn't plan.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, when you plan your overseas trip, you have it planned down to every minute
you kind of have
of every day. Yeah. Exactly. But you hear of people that just pack their bags, book a backpackers, and then go. And I think those stories are much better.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's just, I'm so not that person. Like I'm not opposed to that idea, but I don't think I could wake up tomorrow and be like, right, fuck this, I'm going to drive somewhere. It's never going to happen for me. It would have to be someone that's pulling me out of that, pulling out of whatever situation I'm in to go and do that with.
I'm the same. I can sit here and talk about it and say that's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Would I actually do it?
Yeah. And that goes back to our point about being in lockdown, and you should just do these things because you do take them for granted, and time goes by, and it's that whole corny story.
Exactly. And I like the stories you hear from people though that have bit the bullet and just gone, I'm not necessarily going to make a change, but maybe they've made a change, or they've just gone, my next holiday, I'm going to book the airfare, maybe the first night's accommodation, and work the rest out. Yeah. Like, it seems so scary to me.
That's probably a good way to do it.
Exactly. And the way I was brought up, like, that probably goes against that in the sense that I've always been a planner and made sure things, you know, checks and balances and stuff. But that's the way you experience the world. Yeah. Meet local people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think if you're going within New Zealand as well, I think everything's going to look pretty familiar wherever you go anyway. It's not like you're sort of going way away from home. You're still going to be in a country that's fairly small anyway, and at least if you are stuck anywhere, like the culture of people that we have in this country, you really it's not scary to go and ask someone for something or go to somewhere for whatever help you need. Like it's pretty easy going. Yeah,
totally. And that's what part of what I was saying before. It made me sad about the Talkback Radio. It's when they were talking about that. They were talking about places like Queenstown. Obviously, they're usually full of thousands of tourists. So you had people that probably haven't even been to Queenstown in their life, ringing up and going, oh, no one should ever go to Queenstown. That place is ruined, blah, 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 blah. Tourists have ruined it. If you get a taxi, it's going to cost you $100 and then he'll rip you off on the way and everyone's there to rip you off. And I'm just like, shut up. Like, fine, you're from Auckland and you think that, but have you actually ever been down there? Have you experienced it? Have you met local people?
Easy to talk, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And New Zealand has a real bad attitude with that. Like we're quick to put things down like that because it's in the too hard basket or they'll never do it, so I want to trash talk it,
It's so funny. I always thought like qualities like that were just part of who I was, but you do realise like New Zealand as a culture, there are things that we do tend to do, and it's funny when you actually sort of realise that. When people say that and you go, oh, do other people actually think that way? I
think like the tall poppy syndrome is like massive here.
The what?
Tall poppy syndrome. Do you know what that is? No. That's, I think it'll be a bad explanation, but it's basically where your tendency is to take down people above you or like anyone that stands out or, it's like jealousy pretty much. And we New Zealanders are terrible.
Pretty well known for that.
Oh yeah, it's like, our best people, no matter what, we want to take them down to some extent. Like we struggle to say something nice about someone. You notice, even if it's a rugby player, some star rugby player, they'll come up in a conversation and it'll be, this is what they did, this is great, blah, 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 blah. And then the end of the conversation will be like a small dig because we can't leave it with just a compliment. Like,
interesting.
I don't know, you'll probably notice it.
Now that you've said that, I'll probably watch
even on the news and stuff, they'll compliment someone, but then they have to put in a wee dig or something because it's like, we don't want people getting too big for their boots. We like to keep everyone
down to earth, keep people down.
And I don't know why, but Kiwis are pretty bad for it. Kiwis and Australians, I think it's the competitiveness, but it's also bad because it's in day-to-day life. We're quite jealous of each other and I don't know, we think we can't be big for some reason. But
for sure. Yeah.
We're actually quite good at a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing, like you just probably take these skills for granted as well, or social cues and things like that. It just becomes just normal. Totally. It's funny how different we are from like American culture in that sense that it's so secluded. Yeah.
And I think like in American culture, there's a lot of flack on like Southern culture in the States for obvious reasons. Like a lot of those states and those areas are got their big problems, but they have that hospitality thing, which we don't have here, We're quite cold, even to tourists, and, you'll hear lots of New Zealanders talking shit about tourists, how we don't want them and push them away, but you go to somewhere like the States or lots of places in Europe, some places in Europe are pretty cold, but people open their doors for you, and like in the South in America, even though they, as I said, they get a lot of flack, but they have Southern hospitality, they'll open their doors for you, be super polite for you, treat everyone the same, like, mostly everyone the same, but we don't have that here. We have to have, but
it feels like we do though. That's
we would probably describe it as we do.
But now that you say that, I'm like, I'm a wee bit like that. I'm a wee bit like, no, keep to myself.
And it takes a bit longer.
Yeah.
It takes a while for us to let someone in.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what it is, but feel like we don't trust them. Or
I wonder why that is. I wonder what that comes from. It's funny how a whole country can sort of develop this mentality, I suppose, and that probably comes through, TV personalities that are, like what you see on the news and our sort of talk shows and stuff. It sort of just almost defines everyone and becomes like a stereotype, and it just you just get caught up in this idea.
Yeah, exactly. And second generation, what's passed down.
Yeah, for sure. And I think perhaps it might come down to the fact that we're not super populated. Like everyone sort of does have their own space. Like you can walk through town and it can be busy, or you can go for a drive somewhere and it can be pretty secluded as well. I think that might be part of, that personal space point you made.
Yeah, like, definitely. And we like our own space.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's well, it's not changing, but it's going to have to change. I think we want to act small, but we are growing. And you look at house prices and stuff like that. we're going to have to come to the reality where the New Zealand dream probably isn't so much of a dream, you know. House prices are crazy. You can't have big, wide open space. And
that's
we're going
really
to have cities like Auckland. I mean, it is really a super city now, which we're just going to pretend like it's not. But people, you have to get used to living in apartments and shared spaces and stuff. But the New Zealand dream is a, 4-bedroom little house on a nice bit of land with space and a quiet neighbourhood and stuff. But that just doesn't exist anymore. Or it exists, but it comes at a premium.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a bit scary, man, because I had a couple of years back, I had a big notion that I was going to buy a house like as soon as I could, as soon as I was able to at least put a deposit on a house, I would do it. And over the last couple of years, with all of that going on, the property values and things going up, it's kind of like, this is not realistic for me. Like anytime soon. Like if I'm seriously thinking about this, I have to seriously start thinking about it and planning it now to be ready for it in like the next 5-10 years, because there's no way this is going to happen like in the next month. I can't save that much money, that much time to really get a house of my own.
And the problem just keeps getting worse and worse because there's a problem at both ends. It's like it's too expensive for young people to enter the housing market, and then even if they put effort into KiwiSaver or savings or whatever, basically the prices just move up with time, so you never become ahead, and because they're making it hard for investors as well to build new places, they're not really making it easy for anyone.
Right.
So there's a housing shortage, so you can't buy, and then if you have KiwiSaver, they just put the prices up, so you're priced out of that bracket where you can afford, and then you're okay, so you've got to rent, so then they put the renting prices up, so it's like, the problem just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, right. And rent and things as well, like you say, you spoke of Auckland just before and their rent prices going up. Like, I haven't seen a lot of that firsthand, but I know it to be true just from people that live there and people that are posting places that are available, like people that you follow on social media. You sort of go like, we're looking for a flatmate, $200 a week, sort of let you know. I'm like, what? $200 a week? To live in, like, oh my God. And then it sort of makes me think, like, should I ever move out of where I am now? Because I'm paying pretty good rent now. Exactly. If I move anywhere else, it sounds like it's going to be more than that. And you're more likely to not have big rent increases if you're already in the place that you are.
Yeah.
Whereas if someone's just sort of refurbished or kicked the old tenants out, the new ones are probably going to bump it up a wee bit for the next one.
Exactly.
Like,
I mean, that's the way it's, you can't win. And also if you're like us, if we're in that position where we're thinking about buying a house in the future, but now we're in the being in the renting market at the moment is almost eliminating your chances of owning a house because you're spending that money. That money should be going towards your mortgage or your, if you could afford to get into a house with a decent enough loan, your rent payment should be going towards paying off your mortgage.
Yeah, right.
But at the moment, we're stuck in a loop where rent prices are going up, house prices are going up, so any saving is almost impossible.
Impossible.
It's just crazy. And then we need more houses built so that there's more availability, but the government or whoever it is isn't making it any easier for people with money to invest back into the country and build these houses.
Right.
You'd think they would be, but it's actually not. It's more expensive and harder to build now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Which it's just it's the dog chasing its tail.
Yeah,
it's
for
just,
sure. I just it's not on the table for me anymore. I really can't see myself doing that anymore. Did you see at least anytime soon? Did you see any fluctuation in your KiwiSaver over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, definitely.
Dips and highs and lows
over that lockdown period and the virus period, stuff took a hit. Yeah, like definitely. But
I think that was pretty across the board, wasn't it?
And I've only just at the start of this year, through a friend of mine, has put me onto Sharesies, which is just like casual investing, which is quite cool. I mean, you could take it as far as you wanted to. I'm sure you could put thousands in there if you wanted to, but it's quite a cool introduction. It's a Kiwi company and they just you can invest in funds or individual companies and you just put in, you can do weekly payments where you can put in big sums and then leave it, and you can watch the stocks and actually look at individual funds and see how they're doing and movements and stuff. So
cool.
I've never played with actual money in it, but it was cool seeing how it acts.
So that option, and in New Zealand too, because I've heard about a lot of apps like that where you see things pop up online, but it's always almost American based. You sort of sign up for this thing and it's like, this isn't worth my while.
And that scares me. Like I know it's probably able to do it. But yeah, this company Sharesies seem to be doing cool stuff,
Cool. Oh, good
and they
to
make
know.
it
Free
super
plug.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, free plug. Yeah, but they're growing and growing, which is cool, and young people are getting into it. So
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
you know, like if I had money, I would it'd be something I'd definitely
Yeah,
be
for
keen
sure.
on. But
Yeah. I
even the
think it's a
small
wise
amount
thing to do.
I do is fun because you're learning about the market. And
Yeah, well,
I
that's
could
good
watch
if
it.
you could put a small segment into something and just
Yeah.
watch how it works, rather
Totally.
than be like, okay, I'll make an investment, I'll put $1,000
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
now it's
yeah,
gone,
yeah.
you know?
Exactly.
Test
And
the
it's a
waters
big
a wee bit.
risk.
Yeah.
And I learned about funds that way. I mean, if you invest in a fund, it's a lot safer than investing in a single company because it diversifies it.
Okay.
So basically, if you had your $100 or whatever and you invested it in, I don't know, some, Mitre 10 or whatever, like that would be a straight investment in that company. So as that company goes up and down, your risk is huge. You could lose big or win big, blah, 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 blah. But if you invest in a fund, it's basically a breakdown of maybe 100 different companies. So the market or your fund value moves up and down based on how all 100 of those separate companies does. So
Right.
it diversifies it, which means it's safer. The more you diversify, the less risk there is.
Interesting.
It's quite cool.
Yeah, okay.
So
Oh, wow.
I don't know why more people don't.
Yeah, well,
do
that
that, you
seems, but that's the thing. You've just sort of taught me a wee bit about how that works, because I haven't the foggiest when it comes to investing in that sort of thing.
A
And
year
that's-
ago, I didn't even know what it was either.
Yeah.
Luckily, I had a mate. He's an engineer, pretty switched on with that kind of stuff, and he had a family member that put him onto it. And like even just the little amount of work he's done's shown huge results. Which,
wow.
and I could correlate it with my KiwiSaver as well. I
Yeah.
could look at that, and then if I see a move in the market there, it's actually the same effect on my KiwiSaver.
Yeah, right.
Because it's basically that's probably how they invest your KiwiSaver anyway.
Yeah,
It's pretty much the same way.
get thrown around. Yeah,
Yeah.
It took me a long time to understand. Again, not sort of financially an expert in any way, so I didn't really know how a KiwiSaver actually worked. Just got told to get one, and when you start to see drops for someone that doesn't actually know how
Sure.
it works, it was like, why is there just
like, hold on,
all this
yeah.
money coming out of my account?
Yeah, exactly. I've
Yeah.
woken up this morning and there's $1,000.
Like someone's
gone.
taking
What's
the money
happened?
out of this account and putting it into
And I
something
think
else.
that's why this is probably a broader sort of subject, but why don't they teach that at school? Like,
Yeah, right.
why do you? I know some people thrive at school with your standard run-of-the-mill subjects and stuff,
Yeah.
but I don't know. My opinion, armchair opinion on it, is that if you invested some more effort into teaching kids some of those real life skills, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not everyone needs to invest in the share market, but just how that kind of stuff works.
For
Surely we're going to be putting out kids that are so much
100%.
like attacking the world
100%.
from such a better starting point.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Practical
feel
life
like
stuff.
at the age that I'm at, I should know all about what's going on, but I
yeah.
just don't. And it's partly my fault, of course. I'm not really taking the time to really learn about what my money's doing or what I can be doing with my money. But I mean, the problem with schools, man, is like, this is an age-old conversation. We should be getting taught this in schools. We should be getting taught that in
Totally.
schools. But school really just felt like a place to learn how to learn,
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily any transferable skills. It was just like how to get your brain working.
Yeah.
And where do you start bringing in, education like that, that's specific to that sort of topic,
To day-to-day living, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I feel like it's a whole nother thing if you're teaching someone how to live life rather than like school's not teaching you how to live life.
It's
teaching
basically
you how to-
separating academic students from non-academic students and then sort of offering some very vague pathways. And then it's not until maybe your last year at high school or even, to be honest, most people are probably making actual decisions when they've left high school.
Yeah.
And it's like at that point it's too late. Like you could start informing or just put a different premium on different types of education.
Yeah.
Being
just-
if
it's just
you're going to
getting-
be a scientist or you're going to study med or whatever, sure, there's a few core subjects that you're going to do and you're going to do well in, and that's fine for those people. But there's obviously a massive gap there where it's like
it's still fairly limiting.
totally. And if you're a creative person, what does school offer? It really only offers a art program that's just art painting or art design. And for me, art design was amazing, and that led on to cool things. But there's so many more different forms of creativity there than just, okay, you're an art student or you're a science student or an English.
You're talking about in high school?
At high school, high school. I mean, it's separated into, 4 different kind of categories, which is just not broad enough.
Yeah, I've never studied outside of high school, but I remember in my last year being asked having to choose what your final subjects were going to be for that year. And I just remember looking through the courses and being like, why I don't want to do any of this. Nothing of this appeals to me. I have to pick something here. So it was just like I have to pick something random because there's not really that much available. It's just your core stuff and then sort of weird spin-offs of those main courses as well. And then when you get to, granted, I like I say, I haven't studied outside of high school, but when you actually look into courses at university and polytechs and things, you go like, holy shit, like, why didn't I have any of these choices beforehand?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people have missed it at that chance. Like by that point, they've started something else and they've gone down a path, and whatever, that might be great. But if you're only hearing about different options and different things when you've graduated from high school, that's kind of sad. So many people must have missed out on opportunities where they could have been inspired to do something creative or to do something different. For sure.
I think the platform that, or rather the way that school works, like in a high school level, is pretty old school. Like I think we're pretty lucky in our generation to have access to online tools and things like that, or figure out how you can actually make a living in other ways. Like because school is really just teaching you like, these are the topics that we do. You need to choose one that is relative to a job that you're going to be doing. It's like, well, what if something I want to do is not anything to do with this? And it's like, well, you're fucked. You have to pick something.
That's exactly. And waste your time.
Exactly. That's what it felt like to me. And that when I was picking those courses, it was like, if I have to choose how my life is going to run based off of these courses. And it was like, nothing's there, or my life's going to be nothing.
Even if it wasn't, like, if there's not another solution, one solution could be within those courses, if you have to pick from those fundamental courses, make sure that they're diverse enough that you experience some different things. Like if it was like what we were talking about, shares or whatever, I did economics at school. And that seems like that should be a very worldly subject. You should learn about practical economic things, but really you don't. It's still just the same. It's still run from a textbook that's outdated. It's basically answer the questions, learn how to sit an exam and just learn how to be good at tests instead of going, let's study real world examples. Let's bring people at Polytech. That was what they did pretty well, was looking at case studies. That's the best way to learn, is say, here's an example of someone or a business or a product, or here's what they did well or here's what they did wrong, and then basically just analyze it. And it's a real world thing. You go, okay, I know what that is, and I can analyze whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. But at school, you're just reading from a textbook.
And that was another thing. Sometimes I didn't even know, like at school, I didn't know what economics was.
Sure.
No one told me what economics was. And that might just be me, but it was like, sure, this is another topic that's available, but what am I actually doing in this thing? And it only really gives you sort of prerequisites and sort of a basic rundown of what it is. But even then, it's still like, that just looks scary to me. Like if I don't know what it is that I'm actually going to be doing in that class, why would I do it?
And that puts like,
and kids at that age aren't going to go out of their way to go to a teacher to ask things. Like I would never ever think about going out of my way to go into see a teacher and be like, hey, can you help me decide?
Most days you're just turning up to school, looking forward to lunch and then going home. I mean, you're not going out of your way to learn, which is a problem because it's probably the best thing you could possibly do.
So many kids at that age aren't ready to learn either. Like I was ready to learn, like in terms of actually being interested in any sort of course or any sort of learning of any kind, was like a couple of years ago. And that was from, it sounds sort of silly in comparison, but just from like watching videos on YouTube. Like a physics related thing, and it was like, this is so much more interesting.
Of course.
And I don't know if it was just that sort of sparked my interest because it was presented to me in a particular way, or whether it was just like, okay, I understand why this is being taught, or I understand why this is interesting to some. So I was more willing to learn. So I sort of went on a spiral of finding online information based on these things.
And it's presented to you in a way that is tolerable and understand. That's the new age media where we'll probably relate to that more and take more out of that because they've chosen to do it in a creative way or something different or something modern. It actually interests us, where at school, as you said, it seems like an outdated system. And if you ask most people what you remember, what your best thing maybe from a teacher or something at school was, is usually not actually what you learn to what the subject is. It's a type of relationship.
Yeah,
it's just
sure.
like, who's your favourite teacher is nothing to do with usually what you learn.
No,
it's
nothing
just
at
who's
all.
your favourite teacher.
Yeah.
Who did you get on with the best?
But that's a huge part of it.
It's
as
a
well
massive
too,
part.
man.
So that's why, like, if we learn a lot off YouTube or, you know, doing our own research or watching, I don't know, whatever it is, new stuff, even social media, like there is some good stuff on there. It's because we feel like we have a relationship with that person maybe, or their, you know, it feels more targeted and personalized.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
if you go onto YouTube, there's however many billion videos you can actually specify what you want yourself, find it without any of the other bullshit.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Which is what hopefully some sort of a future school system could be like, where you pick your own learning. And you know, it might inspire kids to actually be like, this is something I'm interested in, here's a way I can learn about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Instead of just, this is what you're going to learn, what everyone else learns. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And to that point, again, another part of what sort of sparked my interest with finding information online was that you can pinpoint exactly what it is you want to learn sort of within that topic, whereas in school they're usually just sort of working through a course book, so you could literally be bored with a topic for weeks on end and get to a point where like, this is just so boring before you get to any part of that subject that's actually going to be interesting, like in physics, for example, like string theory might be something that's super fascinating, sort of resonates with someone, but there could be all this other stuff related to it that's just boring, or like at least you don't get that bit yet, but you want to learn. There's no way of actually sort of mixing up the flow of information or what you're getting. You have to just go with what the teacher's presenting to you, or work from the front of the page to the back. Front page to the back, you know? Which
is, exactly. And I think that's where it's wrong. Like, because if the students invested in creating, maybe designing their own sort of learning, it will actually go better, because they feel like they're a part of it, not just doing what they're told. Because not everyone, not that they don't like being told what to do, but some people just, I'm a bit like that, you know, like I'll relate to someone who I'm having a conversation with, who I feel like we're on the same page instead of being talked at or given directions. You know, you just can't relate with that as easy. So when you can't relate, you can't learn.
Yeah, and the suckiest part about again school is that if you're in a subject that you are at least moderately interested in, you have a shitty teacher or someone that's not enthused about actually teaching this subject, that's going to rub off on you, and you're just going to be...
And you have no say in it.
Yeah.
That could ruin it for you.
Exactly.
You know, you could go into a subject that you were interested in and invested in, have a bad experience with a bad teacher, or a teacher like... People don't like to say it, but of course there's bad teachers out there. There's bad plumbers, there's bad... You know, toilet cleaners. Some days you won't be good at your job. So a teacher can not be good at their job one day, and that could completely affect a student's
100%.
outlook on learning.
Like a classroom, let alone one student. You know, there's
of course.
25, 30 kids in that classroom
people,
that could be like, oh, Jesus.
Exactly. A teacher's having an off day, and that, you know, and not maybe an off day, but maybe they're not interested in what they're teaching.
Yeah.
Like,
and a quote unquote good teacher can mean many different things to many different people. You know, there's no one way to teach everyone. I think that's another tricky part of it.
It's got to be. It's the hardest job.
One method could work for one kid, but completely the opposite for another. There's no way to really
totally. And you can't put that on teachers. Like, it's not their fault. But
of course,
it's the whole system.
Yeah.
And I think, like people say about the system or whatever, there's like an analogy about if the school system was climbing a tree, for example, and you have 25 students, and then if it's the jungle and the system is climbing the tree, a monkey's going to be good at climbing the tree.
Yeah, right.
And an elephant is going to be, you know, it's going to be no good at climbing the tree, but it's going to be good at doing something else. But the problem is what they've set is climbing the tree. So everyone else gets left behind. They'll be good at something else, but how do you find it?
Exactly.
Unless,
And of course, that being said, that I guess that's why you study so many things at one time, because you. I was trying to add on to your analogy, but I couldn't do it in a funny way. But, like figuring out what is actually best for you, and that's maybe just how it has to work. You just have to go through some shitty.
It's funny what you said about like feeling like in the last couple of years you've just started to want to learn.
Yeah.
I even felt when I graduated with my degree, it wasn't until a couple of years afterwards I thought, this is when I should have started my degree. You know, even then, that's 3 years out of high school. I still felt like I was floating.
Yeah.
You know, like I was going to parties and I was just thinking about going surfing or, you know, going mountain biking or something. I was like, whatever. Like I was floating through a degree, which should be now I look back and I go, that should have been my sole focus. I should have just put 150%, and I did all right, and I got through it and everything, but it should have been my life for that time. And now I feel like if I started it now, I would just focus so much better, and that's just obviously a maturity thing.
I was just going to say that. I think it's just when you've matured and when you know that makes sense and that's what you should be doing. Had you gone straight into study after high school? Yeah. So
which is a problem.
It's another thing, man. I think you really do need to take a gap year after you leave school, because that's when you know whether you are actually ready to learn or not. Like if you come out of high school and you have a gap year and you go, fuck yeah, I don't have to do any of that shit anymore. You can actually start thinking about what it is you want to do. Whereas if you just jump straight into schooling again, you're just still wrapped up in that mentality, and it's like it will either still be a bore or it just becomes something that drags on and on and on.
Exactly.
If you at least have 1 year to just think about, you'd be like, okay, I actually was ready to study again. I'll go and do that now that I've thought about it, rather than sort of just
float.
Staying on the same shit.
All those bad habits from high school we were talking about just correlate into it. I went straight into study, and then I'm treating doing work at home like homework. It's not homework. I'm paying 10 grand a year. That's not homework. That's just work. Like, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm going home going, I'll put off that project for a while, or I'll just cruise, blah, 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 blah. It's like, they don't care. University, they don't care. You've paid 10 grand to be there, or whatever it is a year. It's not homework. They couldn't care less whether you pass or fail. They've got their money. Yeah, exactly. But it's for you. You're supposed to be in charge of your learning. And
for sure.
I don't know. When you're in your mid-20s, it's probably where you're more likely to be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
I know I was young, like studying, going into a degree at 18 or 19 or whatever. It's like I'd get more out of it if I did it now.
It's a big commitment, man. And another, to that point again about you're paying so much money to go into these courses. That's another thing that I guess put me off of choosing any courses at Polytech or whatever, because it was like, okay, I can choose a course that I want to do that's more attuned to me, but I'm still paying however much to do that course. If I get in a couple of weeks and I don't like that, I don't actually know how the system works in that regard. If you do have sort of change your mind, but it's like, well, I've just committed to paying all this money this course that I'm just not going to. To me, that was just like, nah, like I'll wait till I'm 100% on something.
And I think that's a good move. And I know people
personally
now
that just never came. No, I've just never had that.
And you've had other focuses, which is cool. I know people that are more successful for doing that exact thing. They just followed. Maybe at the time it was whatever door was open right in front of them, that turned into something amazing.
And to my point about when studying when you're ready to learn, I wasn't ready to learn in high school. So the second that I got out of high school, it was like, sweet, I don't have to do that shit anymore. I'll just get a job and earn money and do that. And so that's just what's happened for me. Like, I mean, I don't regret not studying, and obviously still can, but I don't know if I would really be better off. Like, I don't have any debt. Like,
exactly. I don't think
not that I'm living superior to anyone else, but it's still like, I'm doing things I'm
and I think there's fundamental things that I got from doing a design degree that are priceless. Like, I learned so much. But then if you're really self-reflective, you go, I could have achieved that all myself. Maybe it would have taken longer, and maybe I wouldn't have done it. So the best thing about tertiary education is you're forced to be there and do it. You've paid your money, you've got to study. So if I had have said, I'll just teach myself, or I'll take my time and explore it, maybe I never would have done it. So the benefit is you're forced to do it. But looking back, is it worth the money? Is it worth the time? I could have gone straight into work and maybe found my own way. And I mean, what I'm doing now has nothing to do with what I studied either, but in the background, I'm trying to do as much of it as I can.
Sure.
Design degree, and now I'm working as a builder, and I love it, and it's awesome, and I'm going to get qualified, and that was a dream before I found design, but now hopefully in the future I can incorporate the two things. I can incorporate my skills in design and my practical skills in building.
So I remember you talking to me a while back about having a large studio space sort of available to you, or something that was in the works. Has there been any progress there?
Sort of, actually, in the last couple of months, it's been my mate that I was telling you about before. He's an engineering student, so he's from Dunedin but studied in Christchurch, and now he's coming back. And now he's local, so he's sort of the person that I can hitch my wagon to, and we do stuff together, because that's that. When I would have told you about having a studio, it's all just sort of like a dream or whatever. But when you have someone else that's actually keen on that as well, and so we want to do that, and he's really switched on and clever and keen to make stuff. So
Sweet.
I'd like to set up a studio and do that, but we don't know what it would look like. But we've started to do stuff like
But you've got an idea for what you're going to be doing in there, of course.
Sort of, yeah. It'd be cool. Like a lot of the stuff I studied was materials and manufacturing and product design stuff. So it'd be cool to, for example, we're just taking on little things like we've got an empty space, so we'll start with building workbenches and creating good design spaces. And so he's got a CNC cut, basically furniture project that he wants to do. And my flatmate, he's working at a sign company with a CNC router. So hopefully we could do, pair up with that and do small projects like that.
Explain to me and maybe the people listening what a CNC router is.
CNC router is it's basically a fancy saw, for lack of a better word, where you can start with a sheet of material and basically a blade cuts the material away and then you're left with whatever you've programmed into the computer.
Right.
And it's all just run by a computer.
Sick.
So you could put a big sheet of plywood in, cut all the parts out of it, and then put all the parts together. And all the parts, they're pretty much finished when they come out of the machine.
Right.
Which is cool.
that's pretty broad, like
totally broad, yeah.
For what you could do with
totally,
it,
totally. And his study in engineering's set him up really well for that, and I've got a bit of the creative flow for it. But we don't have any projects, but hopefully setting up a studio just in itself, and you'll know about this.
Oh, man.
So many
Once
projects
you've got it,
come.
you start,
exactly.
The workflow it'll just come.
And small projects turn into, you start doing things and then you realize, oh, that's actually something else I need, and then something else, and the list gets bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden you've got 20 little projects that keep you busy, and then you set up, and then someone walks in the door, or even if it's off your neighbour or your mum or something, you go, oh, I'll do that business for you.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Yeah, dude, having a studio is a game changer for sure. Yeah. Have you got spots sort of lined up?
So that's the decision.
Is that the tricky
because we're both renting, you never feel like you've got your own space. So like what you've done and what I would have been talking to you about at the time is if you can find a space that's not at home, that you have to leave home to go to do your work, to focus, is such a good thing. But obviously it's not easy. If we want to use tools and stuff, you can't just rent any old space anywhere where you can run a table saw and a drop saw.
Yeah, it's tricky, man.
And using people's garages are fine, but then you never feel like it's your own space. Yeah. And because it's a rented property, I can't go banging up walls or pulling shit down. Or
you got to look industrial, because there's going to be no places, at least in the city, that are going to be open to people doing stuff like that.
And then can you warrant when you're not making any money necessarily from the studio, as you've explained to me, as it's more rent again.
You're just
it's
paying
making things
for
harder.
doing things you want to do. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle, man.
It is.
You've got to start somewhere, and it's going to take ages. Like, you can't expect things to just pick up as soon as you have that tool available to you. It's going to be something that develops over time. You develop your skills and you develop a reputation as well, and then it'll just start flowing organically.
Totally.
The point is that you get somewhere where you can start doing that. You can talk about these things for so long.
Oh yeah. It kind of ties all together is the conversation we had the other night was when he comes over, and we might sit down and we'll go into a deep dive on YouTube watching all these videos of other people doing stuff, these awesome creators. And then we sat there, and the other night we're like, we always watch these videos and talk about what we're going to do and never do them. And YouTube's great because it's provided the inspiration and we've learnt the stuff.
Fantastic.
But then it's like, what did we actually do? We spent 4 nights on the trot watching YouTube videos and not doing any of it ourselves. So the other night we're like, right, we actually just picked a day and we downloaded some software on our computers or whatever, and actually stuff that I haven't used since studying, did some CAD renderings. It was just for a workbench, but we're like, right, we made a CAD rendering for the workbench. We made a price list, a material list. We did some sketches, and it was all overkill because it was just a workbench. But instead of watching a YouTube video about building a workbench or whatever and going, oh, we should do that, we're like, we did it, you know, and it's not finished, and we're trying to manage all our projects, but it's like, starting is the hardest part.
I think one of the best motivational tools is, especially on a platform like YouTube, is you see videos like that, and things that I've noticed when I'm watching tutorials on how to do things is like, I could do this better. I could do this tutorial better.
Sure.
Not necessarily always like what it is that person's doing, or you can watch them and be like, okay, you can take a few things from it, but I could do that a lot better than they've done it. And then that's like, if you've got those tools available to do it, just go and do it. That was
Yeah.
one of the things that worked for me. It's just watching other people work, whatever form it is, making music, painting, art, design, like anything. If you see someone and you go, oh, that looks like something that I can do, and you go and do it, you're sweet from there.
Exactly,
man. Yeah.
exactly. And that's the thing. And the platform of YouTube's good, but then you can go. I've also been trying to recently sort out I guess YouTube's still social media, but for lack of a better word, but social media, trying to sort it out where I'm trying to filter what I see, where there's so much crap on there, and some of the crap I have always enjoyed and watched, but then I actually analyze it now more than I ever have. I'm like, what's this actually giving to me? Like I'll actually literally, before I even watch a video or scroll on Facebook or Instagram or who I'm following on Instagram, I'm like, is this actually providing anything to my life? Like, should I waste my time with this, or is there a better use of my time? Even if it's a different YouTube video or a different person I'm following on Instagram, but like, try and filter it so it adds value to your life, because there's so much crap on there.
Yeah, especially if you've got lots of people that are making the same content related to the same thing, because you can watch like 10, 20 plus YouTube videos based around the same thing and only take like one thing from each of those videos, or at least it might take you that many videos to get you all the information that you needed about a particular thing, whether it's like just an example, me recently watching videos on how to mix and master audio and doing that sort of thing, or what things I should be buying that's going to achieve this for me. Literally just like stocking up the watch later playlist of just things or people talking about that and watching 20-minute videos and be like, right, I got two bits out of that I needed, you know.
And sometimes you have to just commit
There's
to
no
that
one perfect tutorial.
Yeah,
but,
sure. That is true. You have to, sometimes you've got to go through the quantity to actually get the quality, which sucks. But I also just talking about like looking at even just the way the algorithms work, whatever, when I log on to YouTube, there might be 10 videos there that are just waste of space, some sort of like bottom of the barrel social media, celebrity media type of crap, where I'm like, I could waste 20 minutes doing that, or I could go out of my way to look for something that inspires me or does something a little bit, just gets the brain working a little bit. Like I hate coming home after work and then just melting away into absolutely nothing. And then you look at the time, you're like, 2 hours can go by like that, because you've gone on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and you're like, what did I get from that? Yeah. I got into a really good spin a while back. It was last year, but I'd come home from work, relax for a little bit, and then I'd force myself, I'd just go out to the garage and I'd have nothing to do. Yeah. And sometimes I'd literally stand in the middle and look around and go, oh, I have nothing to do. Yeah. But after 10, 15 minutes, I'd find something, and I'd be pottering away on something, or I'd clean something. It sounds ridiculous, but I'd literally clean something.
Start doing something.
Yeah, service a tool or something, clean something, or do something with the car, or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, 2 hours has gone by. The same way I would have wasted it on social media or on my computer, but I've done something creative or something, not even creative, just active. You know?
I think these days just time away from your phone in general is going to be beneficial in any way. Like for the first time, I've been pretty bad recently, man, with doing exactly that, coming home from work or a day at the studio and just being in front of the phone all evening, you know. And last night, for the first time in ages, I had like, you know, if you've been on your phone for so long and you look up and you like double vision, you just sort of like all fuzzy. I was like, holy shit, how long was I just on my phone for?
And
like,
it's the echo chamber. You just, it sucks. You're in there and like, it just, I don't know, people don't really talk about, well, people do talk about the dangers of social media and stuff, and I know that's like a trigger thing now, but it's true. Like it's got to be true. There's no way it's healthy. No. And also, have you ever had that feeling where you're reaching into your pockets and you might not have your phone? You're almost like,
you do, like, the way your
it's
heart
almost like it's part of it. Which is,
man.
I've felt that, and I've checked myself. I'm like, what do you, like, you're literally attached to this thing. Why are you nervous about it? Like,
I think I definitely like that, but I think more, I don't know if that's just to do with the attachment side of things, where it's like an automatic reflex to pick up your phone, but it's also like quite a valuable thing, of course. Definitely. Like people are paying over $1,000 for their phones these days. If you don't have that on you, you got to fork out another $1,000 to get another one of those things that you're on all the time. You know? And you feel like you can't live without it. You've spent that money for a reason. Like, the fact that they're that expensive in the first place is just ridiculous. I know they're powerful and they do a lot, but you can't tell me you shouldn't be forking out a couple of grand for
cell phone. But it's so much more than a cell phone these days.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's like
That's funny.
they're running a racket. Like
Yeah.
there's a definite racket there.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I was talking to my dad this afternoon because he's just bought a new phone, and he was saying like he's getting used to everything else. It's not too different from his old phone, but it's just new enough that he's sort of going, okay, there's a lot of things that this thing can do. I'm not going to use all of this. Did I need to buy all of this?
Sure.
And I'm sort of saying like, yeah, I mean, there's tons of things on my own phone that I'm never going to use, but there's phones are so crazy these days. Like the size of the battery that you'll get in your device now compensates. Like if you're only using 10% of what your phone can do, but you've got all the tools within the phone to be able to perform at its peak level, something that is going to be using all the day, you reap the benefits because you've got a massive battery that'll probably last you a couple of days because you're only like answering a phone call here and there sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And then I think it's hard. It must be hard to like with the product design. You've got to kind of design something that works for everyone.
Yeah.
But the price thing is an issue where you have, for example, you could probably walk into most tech shops and buy a laptop for a similar price of a cell phone.
Yeah.
And you think about the power, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out that Apple, for example, they're the worst, has just put a premium on the brand.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
they're not really doing anything that other people can't do, but you're paying for the brand. You're paying for the prestige, and you're paying for they are nice to use. I've been using them for years and I love it, and I wouldn't change. But when you can walk into a shop and buy a powerful laptop for $1,500 or an Apple cell phone for $1,500, there's a problem there, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
and I guess it depends on what you really did need at the time. But
Exactly.
I see what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know lots of people out there would say, oh, you'd get an Android or whatever and you'd get better performance and all this, blah, 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 but you just stick to what you know.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't
exactly
have an
that,
Apple
and-
because I necessarily want it. I have it because I'm used to it. And
this is my, I think, third or fourth Apple.
Yeah.
I can't see myself with anything else now.
No.
Like some of the new Samsung phones are nice.
Sure.
Like I'm in the tech world in an online presence. Like I watch tons of tech related things, but I only hear about these new features and things. But when I actually went in store with Dad to look at the new phones, it was like, holy crap, that's what they're talking about. Like
It
looking
actually
at the
puts into
displays on
reality,
things, it's like, holy shit. Going back to like, I thought my phone was pretty good, and then you go and see these new displays and all this shit and the cameras that are on them. It's like, holy crap. Like they really are like flagship phones.
That's the thing is like those people that are running businesses off their phones, you know, and the cameras and stuff are so good now. People that are doing like even this kind of not podcasting necessarily, but you know, if you were vlogging and stuff, you could run your whole media business off your cell phone, which is just it's super cool. And I think a lot of filmmakers talk about that. Like people forget now that if you were young and starting out filmmaking, you need the best gear or whatever, but the best camera is the camera you have.
Yeah.
You know, the best filmmakers are people that have just gone out and done it. And now with a cell phone, you could go out and make high quality content without even trying.
I was just going to say that, man, because sometimes I kick myself in the butt because I could literally just plug in like a little connection to my phone here and we could be doing the same thing we're doing right now. You know,
but there is benefits to
of course,
to using nice gear.
I don't think I'm wasting my time at all, but it's like this is.
But that's what kind of like what we were talking about between like forcing yourself to get out there and do stuff is there's actually no excuses anymore. Exactly what you said. If you wanted to make a podcast and you're like, oh, I can't afford the mics or you've got no excuse. You could pull your phone out and do it.
That's right.
And there's actually
100%.
Nothing stopping people but except themselves, you know?
Yeah, I mean that definitely was an option for me, but I'm so the person that like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it properly, like in turn, not necessarily like a creative feel, but in terms of doing something like this where you need the proper gear to get a better result. Like I couldn't stop until I had something that I was happy with, you know. But the fact that you can do that with these things nowadays it's pretty
insane,
capabilities. But that's funny how you were saying, you know, the brand Apple, you're buying products because of the logo, not necessarily because. Did you see the wheels that they had released for the new iMac computer?
No.
Oh my god! So they released, and I'm not super up to date with this, but they released the new, not an iMac, iMac, like their desktop computers, a couple of years ago, and then I think it was either the start of this year or last year they released Apple wheels to put like the computer onto.
Sure, like
I'm
the
not
tower.
talking about the actual.
Yeah, because they look like a rubbish bin. They're like circle, right?
Yeah.
Is that the ones you're talking about?
The
Like-
wheels or the
computer itself.
No,
They're
it's
old
it's a big rectangle, like the actual computer, not like the monitor
No,
ones
the
that
tower.
you have. The actual,
Yeah.
that thing. Yeah,
Right,
It's
I
sort
thought
of
that
it's sort of
they're-
like a aluminium with sort of holes
Far
in
out.
it. Sort of,
Yeah.
can't
I know the
describe
one, like
it.
the proper old school PC tower looking one
for sure.
So they were selling the wheels separately.
So well, they'd released the computer initially, and then they released Apple wheels to go with it. So there was obviously already fittings ready, so that you could attach these wheels.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll show you. They're so stupid. But the thing about them, see, look how much they are.
You're taking the piss.
Yeah, they're only good.
So I'm looking at a kit here that says $1,200.
Yeah.
For Apple Mac Pro wheel kit.
Yeah, so you literally pay the price again for the wheels, and the wheels are only good for that computer. Like you can't. I suppose you could get a fitting to put those on it and do it for something else, but
no, you're not though, are you? Like they know that's their, like what I was saying, their market will eat that up. There's people out there, not
100%,
everyone, but
yeah.
the people that are consuming those goods, that computer in the first place, are like, some people out there are not even going to think twice about that. They're going to buy that and be stoked, which is just
got the
crazy.
Apple wheels, man.
Yeah,
You know,
I've got those Apple
top
wheels.
of the food chain right
exactly.
there. Yeah,
which
That's
is just crazy. But
I mean, they're pretty nice.
and to Apple's credit, as a designer, like everything they do is exquisite. Like it really is. Like those wheels,
they've got it on.
exactly.
Yeah.
Their design philosophy is brilliant, but it's just like, why can't the world have that at a much lower entry point? Like, why can't we have good design like that and user friendliness and user centered design at a lower level?
Yeah.
You know, when you do buy a cheap Android phone, how the user experience is just horrible.
Yeah.
Like everything about it's just horrible. Like, you know, and also the shelf life, it might last a year and then they're fucked, which is just crazy. Why we need a society where all the best designers, instead of working for Apple, all those best engineers and designers should have an opportunity to make cool things for everyone. You know, that stuff doesn't trickle down. If you're a I don't know, for whatever reason you can't afford good stuff like that, you should have the opportunity to still have access to good design and good user-centered design, where instead of just making all the good, exquisite design for the elite, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they've got it on lock for sure. Like, I could look at like, and if we're talking about phones, for example, look at Android phones for days and be like, yeah, these all look fantastic and enough. Like if you only showed me Android phones for a day, like all the new ones that come out, I'd be like, sweet, I'd probably afford to find something I like. But then you show me an iPhone again, I'm like, yeah.
Exactly. And it feels like home, you know?
Yeah,
you just unlock it. It's like it unlocks the same way as they all do.
That's right.
I know how to navigate it and whatever. Like,
it's so easy to just stay on that same train.
But I haven't upgraded my phone. Like I have to have the new. I know people that do, and good on them. That's whatever. But I'm always stretching my stuff to the
for sure,
to the
100%.
limit. You know, I'll try and make an iPhone
I don't
last.
need to buy a new iPhone.
No.
Like I have an iPhone.
And I replace it when there's a problem.
Yeah,
I replace
exactly.
it when it's broken. I can't use it, or you know. I
that
don't
being
replace
said,
it
I
just for the
am
hell of it.
getting to a point now though where I think I probably do need to upgrade because I have no storage left, and I think that's another thing that Apple does. Like,
they do that on purpose.
If you look,
100%.
the amount of storage that my phone says it has, that I'm like, it's just other. It's just a big like not 80% of it is just grey.
It's
other.
basically
like,
a big middle finger saying, "Get down to the shop and buy the new one." And also, like they've been in court for all those problems with the like they call it. Well, it's called known obsolescence, where they're basically killing off things on purpose to get you to spend money to upgrade. So they got into a massive controversy where I think at one stage you'd pick, do you want more CPU power, like speed and performance, or better battery life?
Right.
And it was literally a decision. It might have even popped up on the phone or whatever it was. It was like, make this choice now. You know, you've got an old phone. What do you want? Do you want it to run fast or do you want good battery life? And then the courts could turn around and say that if you could control that, that's basically that company killing a product on purpose and not supporting it, because which can arguably mean that they're forcing people to have to spend more money and replace it, which is you're not allowed to do.
Right.
But at the same time, you can't keep supporting old phones for years and years and years. You know, you can't have Apple spending they won't want to spend millions of dollars on 10-year-old phones.
No.
Eventually, they're going to have to die, but they can't
their
go.
business is based around having a new phone every year.
But they
to
can't
keep
go
them
out
safe.
of their way either to kill people's phones.
Yeah.
So it's tricky.
Right.
But that is bad. You don't want like a company having control over that, basically killing it when it hasn't died.
Yeah, it is unfair, but it's also the perfect business plan.
Of course it is.
Like if you're releasing a new product every year, and every new year a product from a few years back is getting less available. Like the new update, I can't install the new update on my phone because it's like 3 gigabytes, and my phone is a 16 gigabyte phone. Like I literally just have no room to do that, so I'm going to have to upgrade.
Yeah.
So they've got me. You know?
Of course they have, and I mean, and that like they have to move forward.
Yeah.
But I like to think that they aren't going out of their way to do it on purpose.
No, for sure.
But which they got into trouble for, and I think they've sort of dialed that back a bit. But
yeah, and the fact that they are sort of, I sometimes perceive Apple as being sort of a company that does not engage with the public that frequently. They are quite sort of behind closed doors, and that sort of adds to the appeal of the company as well. You're sort of like, oh,
exactly.
man,
It's like the
Apple
cool club.
product? Yeah. Whereas a lot of other companies can be fairly interactive, like specific phone manufacturers can be more open with what's actually happening. And not that Apple don't have their what do you call their presentations when a new phone?
Sure. Like, their community interactions, but I know what you mean, like with their big presentations and stuff.
Keynote speeches or whatever they call
it.
Yeah, that sort of thing. They obviously do that.
Oh, and they have a
still,
massive
like,
community, but it's still in-group, out-group feeling like
for sure.
they thrive on the prestige of having expensive products. And that's a social thing anyway. Like people like having it. Some people like having it just for that reason. Yeah. They like to have it because it is expensive and fancy. And, and we all want that.
Luxury items. That's never going to be not a thing, you know.
I just wish, from a design standpoint, I just wish some of the better design could trickle down into stuff that's more affordable. You know, we live in an age now where there's so much cheap crap. Like, you'll know, even at Mitre 10, like a lot of, back in the day, New Zealand was a country that we prided ourselves on good quality stuff. Like, you'd pay maybe a little bit more, but nothing crazy. It would be mid-range for good stuff. A lot of it was made here, or if it was imported, it was good quality stuff. But now we've fallen into the trap of the cheap import, mass-produce, like get all our stuff from China and it's crap and not even that cheap, which is, you know, and it's just sad.
There's a stigma around getting things made in China, and I think that's pretty silly now. I hear that quite a lot in my workplace. People will pick up products and turn them around and say, oh, made in China, I don't want that, I don't want to support that. It's like, pick 10 things in the shop that are not made in China.
Exactly.
You know?
Where's your watch made?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's your shoes made?
Exactly.
Like,
I could name everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And made in China does not mean bad. There is a stigmatism because a lot of bad stuff, cheap stuff is made there. But that's because everything's
because
made
they make
there.
it. Yeah.
You know, the
No one
cheap
does
stuff's made there and the expensive stuff's
Exactly.
made there.
Yeah.
Like, it is a problem.
Yeah,
but
people don't understand that side of it, specifically to my point that they don't understand that, like, good things get made there as well. Like, China's not just the factory for making cheap crap.
No.
Yeah.
But I hate that as a country we are more susceptible to cheap crap now.
Yeah, for sure.
Which sucks. I just prefer things that have good shelf life and good last
absolutely.
a lifetime. That used to pride yourself on spending a little bit more money and buying a product that literally lasts a lifetime or could last a lifetime if you look after it. But now that's literally impossible. Like, you consume things that are just never going to last and almost designed not to last. Yeah. Which is a shame.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
That's just the way.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
Do you want some water?
Yeah, please.
It'll be the first thing I think.
That's all good. I'm not desperate, but
I'm sure you are. Gin and tonics make you a bit thirsty.
Yeah, it was good though. I enjoyed that. I haven't had a gin and tonic just like that in ages.
Nor have I, and that's kind of why I wanted to do it. So, Casey, when was the last time you picked up your camera?
Oh, good question. Good question. Not enough. Like, I still have a couple of film cameras that I'll muck around with, and I don't know, probably the last roll of film. Over New Year's, I ran some film through some cameras, like just traveling and that, and I've been using a couple on and off. Just one I keep in the truck for when I went on little weekend trips or whatever I'd shoot, but I never do anything with it. And then the last time I used my digital camera for proper like photography work was I can't even remember. That's how bad it is. It was
Oh, really?
so long
Yeah.
ago. And it's something I love, but I just never...
Just something that sort of just ended up collecting dust on the shelf,
Yeah.
or you just decided?
No, I
something
didn't
you
even
wanted to do?
decide. It's not... Yeah, it is. It's like something that collects dust, but it's not even... Well, I guess it's my fault for probably not being actively out there looking for projects, for lack of a
Yeah.
better word, or things to do. But it's there when I need it. But
Yeah.
the times I've used it, like I've done some graduation photos for mates and
Yeah.
stuff like that, which is cool. But what makes me happy with it is actually going out and doing cool.
Yeah, I was
shoots
going to
and-
say, is it hard to actually sort of get work in a photography field? Because I feel like there's some
totally.
pretty easy routes that you can go in photography, but actually being able to do what you want. So
Yeah.
probably going to be on your own time. Like you could easily set up
Exactly.
like a wedding or something, but to
Yeah.
actually do a project of your own, do you find that was something that probably was part of it?
Yeah, that is definitely part of it. It is hard to find those kind of projects, but if I had have put more effort into it,
Yeah.
I could have done that.
For
But
sure.
I'm just a sucker for the same problem as
Yeah.
sort of what we were talking about. But having too many different ideas and trying to do them all,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
But I mean,
interested in
yeah.
so many different things, and I try to do all of them, and then some things go down on a lull, and then I'll pick them back up for
Yeah.
a while, and starting new work and that. Coming home and sort of going out and doing photography just wasn't high on the list, but it should be. And
Yeah. Oh, well, you've still got the gear, man. Like,
Oh,
it's
totally.
not like that's a
Totally.
skill that's
Yeah.
left you. You know, it's something you could easily pick back up again.
And all it takes, kind of like what we were talking about, is you find someone who inspires you again,
Yeah.
and then try and copy it.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
people put shame on copying or whatever, but I love going out. I used to go
Yeah.
out and I'd watch a video, look at a photographer's work, and just try and emulate it just for fun.
There's
you
a
know?
difference between copying and being influenced by something.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
There's people that can blatantly copy
Mm-hmm.
things, and you know when they've copied, but you can definitely draw influence. Like there's no like any new painters, at least painters, just because this resonates with me, the painters that I've come across online, Instagram accounts of painters, like there hasn't been one sole artist who have been like, this has been drawn from a Basquiat or a Picasso, that sort
Sure.
of thing as well. Like there's always some aspect of it that's translated, and
Yep.
that's usually influence, but you can tell when someone's basically just ripped
yeah.
someone off.
Yeah.
But you're right, it could just take that one person to spark that interest again and get you going. And
Yeah.
it might be a new technique that they've learned that you try and implement in your own practice as
And
well.
I think even with my type of photography, I was never, well, as now I've picked up other things in my day-to-day job, I wasn't going to turn it into a career. So it was always going to remain a hobby that may have had some side benefits of some perk work.
Yep.
So that is cool. But actually one of the problems is actually probably other people. And I know a lot of people say that as an excuse, but you really need two people. Like subject photography is kind of what I like to do. Like I
Yeah.
probably like taking a picture of a person
100%,
and setting
I'd be the
up.
same.
Yeah,
Any
and-
figurative work,
Exactly,
yeah.
and having my camera on me all the time isn't really a reality anymore. So I'd actually have to tee someone up who's keen to do a show
Yeah.
to go out, and then you're relying on them sort of being into it, maybe as
Yeah,
much as I
right.
am or whatever. And I've had people in the past like who absolutely love it, and we've had fun doing it,
Yeah.
but it's not something that's easy to do to say to your mate, oh, come on, let's go, or your
I'll take some
girlfriend or
photos of
whatever.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
You'll
Yeah,
go
it
take
is odd,
photos.
isn't
It's
it?
not
Yeah.
easy for everyone, but
Yeah.
I was just looking around the studio, obviously got heaps of cool work here, but how do you price it? That must be hard.
Yeah, it is hard, man. And I haven't really figured out the proper way of doing it. I mean, it's hard because you've got to take into account, your material costs, the time it's taken you, the value that it has to you as well. It's hard to sort of get that all into one thing that makes sense, a price that makes sense to you. Because it's just not an easy task, and it's easy to doubt your decision on the price as well. So it's just a matter of figuring out what is the best, what feels right, I suppose. And sometimes it comes organically. Sometimes you do just know what the price of a piece is going to be. Other times it's like, I really don't know. Like this might not mean as much to me as another painting does, so it might not be as high, which seems weird still, because I think a big thing that's in the back of my mind when I'm pricing work, which shouldn't be there, but it is, I think it's just a natural feeling, is that I don't have a reputation as an artist. Like, I haven't been doing this very long. There's no real reason for me to be pricing my work at really high rates, you know. And being a beginner artist, I want to be able to have people buy my work.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does still need to be at a level where I can afford to keep doing that and keep buying resources and things to keep doing it. Like, I can't just say to my mate, oh, yeah, $50 for an oil painting. It just doesn't make
not
sense.
Reality.
And I'd love to be able to give people work. I'd love to just say, you know what, you really love that one, just take it.
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to do that, but it's just not realistic.
No, it's not feasible. And you've invested a lot of time and money into it yourself. And it's not just about that. It's obviously there's more to it than that. But at the end of the day, we live in the real world where that stuff matters, and you've put a lot into it, and you're looking to get a lot out of it. And you're still experimenting and you're still having fun, but there is a point where you're going to have to put value on yourself, which is
absolutely
hard to do.
And it's hard to know when that is as well. And I find it hard to know how when you're actually doing well as an artist, especially as a visual artist, because where's the, you've got nothing to really look at. You could look at your sales, I suppose, but how do you look at your own sort of reputation?
Sure.
Like,
where are the goalposts?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I suppose you could look to social media, but personally, a lot of my work isn't on social media. So it's not like someone can look at my profile and say, oh, this guy's a well-known artist, because number one, I don't have thousands of people following me. So it's no inclination as to the level that I'm at.
Sure.
So
your value.
So
which
how do you know when to actually bump your work up? It's like,
and the work comes first. I mean, if there's artists with big social media followings, it's because they had a following before social media. You're trying to build an organic thing where you're not going to be able to, if you were, there's probably problems. If you were popular on social media first, in a way, you probably haven't gone about it the right way.
Exactly.
You want to stay pure and do it for yourself for a start. Then people take interest, and then that builds and builds and builds. But it sucks because we do live in a age where if I didn't know you and I wanted to find something out about you or your art, the first thing I'd do would be go to some sort of form of social media or look you up, which
and I think
you're
that's
competing with, which is
right.
tough.
And I think that's probably something that is perhaps leading me down a wee bit. All this being said, I haven't been doing a lot of work recently in that regard, but still, I don't have a big online presence with my work. I'm not sure why. I think initially I did have all of my work on my Instagram. It just started piling up, and just the more I looked back on it, the more I didn't like the way it all looked together, clumped up and sort of cropped in that way. I was scrolling down, I sort of thought, all my work's here and anyone can come to here and it's already got a following and people can see stuff, but I just personally didn't like the way it was presented. Sure. I'd much rather...
The funny thing is that's true, but you know who will be the harshest critic of that is you.
Oh, of course.
We all see our own, and we see it in such a different way. Like if I hopped on your Instagram right now and I saw, 10 works or whatever collated, I would be seeing such a different thing to what you're seeing. 100%. Everyone's lens is so. See, to me, I'd probably like that. Like that would be interesting. But I totally understand what you're saying when you're looking back on your own stuff and you think, I'm doing too much, or am I trying too hard, or the way these look together don't. But 9 times out of 10, you're the only person that's ever going to see that.
Exactly,
so
man.
hard.
And I'm 100% behind you in that point. That definitely resonates. But the thing with Instagram, as good of a tool as it is, like any social media like that, where you can reach a large audience fairly quickly, or at least there's the capacity or the that is
an
plausible.
Option,
It's great, but there's no flexibility in how you're actually presented on that platform.
Totally.
Like you can visit 10, 20, or literally any Instagram profile and it's all going to look the same. It's the same format. And that's why I was like, well, I need a website because then that itself is an art form.
Yeah, that's a good call.
It's presenting your art as art.
I didn't think of that. Like you are actually... that structure's already been laid out. You're kind of conforming to that where if you take it out of that, you have the ability to be creative with how you're showing it and make it your own. Where Instagram, like, as you said, it's fine, but you're really conforming to that structure that's already there and you can only do a limited thing with it. But if you can attract people outside of that, building a website.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
like
It's
that.
just
That's true.
That it comes down to exactly that. I'd much rather, like, if someone said, "Can I see some of your work?" I would 10 times out of 10 rather pull up my website and show someone than pull up my Instagram account and show someone.
I like that. There's so much more of you in it
to it as well.
Yeah,
the
that's
Instagram thing.
and you feel like it's a more direct line to you, like because you've created it and you've styled it and you're in control of it.
Yeah, exactly. I had a separate. All my work was published on my personal account alone, and that was my first nah. So I made a Instagram specifically for that. And that was good for a wee bit because the people that were following it, I knew were people that were interested in the work, and I could actually gauge how many people were actually following or were actually interested in my art because they followed that page. So to gauge a sort of more appropriate audience size, I suppose. But it came down to the same thing. It's like I don't like having it there like that. It just doesn't look the way I want to do it, and it's sort of. The format of Instagram, it literally squishes photos all into one. Like if you think about it, it's still a tile grid of separate things, but looking at it as a whole, it gets all merged and sort of. This is just me overthinking it, but that's just how I perceive it.
I understand how your brain works when you're looking at that. Like, that's all taken into consideration because, and you're not on control of that. You'll never be able to change that. Yeah, and if you can collate the same work in a different way and make it speak better or whatever, whatever that you feel, when you look at it and you feel comfortable, that's so much better. Yeah. And that's where you want to be directing your traffic to. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, Instagram's not all bad, of course, but I suppose one of the better things about it is that you can actually, I sort of lost my train of thought there, but yeah, it's just, I think it's much better to have something of your own. So my point was going to be the benefits to an Instagram account is because it's information quickly is what social media is. You know whether or not you like something. So the benefit to Instagram, if someone is coming to your account to see what you're up to or what your work's like, if you've got posts on posts on posts on posts and someone can just, even if you're not looking at the work, if you can just open up an account and just scroll and scroll and scroll and it's all their work, you can go, oh wow, this person has a lot of work. Yeah, sure. They do a lot of work and they're busy, and if you're looking at the dates on those posts and every couple of days, this person is working all the time, and that's a good thing as well, which is something I'm not doing. No. So it gets to a point where I'm not working that frequently anymore, so any posts that I make art related is either weeks apart from the last one. So I'm personally left stuck with looking at this page of just old stuff, and it's super unmotivating, and it just right. That's another element. Yeah, and actually that timeline plays an effect on it. It's what you're doing, even though it's not an accurate representation of what you do. So when you look at it, it might make you feel worse about it. Or, I didn't think of that. That's a good point.
I think a lot of people jump to social media really quickly with things that they create, and I'm guilty of it. Like I don't want to be a hypocrite here, but it's really like interesting that your first thought when you make something is to pick up your phone and take a photo of it and put it in your story and show people.
Scary.
I think it's super important. This is in hindsight, of course. I think it's super important to actually sort of figure out the fundamentals of what you're doing, or actually establish your interest rather than just discovering a small part of what it is that you're doing and show people. Because can you imagine if I just started doing a painting, like my first one ever, and like sort of got halfway through and took a photo and then posted the next day, hey guys, I'm painting now, and then never do that again. Like it just looks terrible.
It does look terrible. I totally agree. And
not that anyone's going to be like, oh, I remember you posted a week ago you did the painting. What the hell's going on?
No, but you're right. It goes back to like what we were talking about ages ago about the media and that clickbait culture. Yeah, is it's the same sort of thing. Is like, someone might just decide they're going to be an artist for a day, like what you said. It's terrible. It's like, they've painted a picture and they put it on their Instagram and then move on, and then the next day they're riding a unicycle. Yeah, the next day they're skydiving, and now they're a photographer or whatever. Blah 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 blah. That's brilliant, and I'm glad if they're happy, they're happy. But it's short, sharp content. No one's sinking their teeth in or really pushing themselves or developing who they are as a person. It's easy to just whack something up there, get a few likes,
instant feedback,
instant thrills, and nothing, no deeper meaning, nothing that really probably makes you feel that good inside, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's the real problem I have with social media is that I can't even look at my friends' work like intently. Like, it's so easy to scroll.
Or?
No, like it's so easy to scroll through stories that like I feel guilty, but it's just part of the system or part of the routine with using Instagram specifically, is that you can just scroll through everyone's stories and stories. You can just tap, and it's a visual thing. Like if it's something that doesn't appeal to you, or it's a person that doesn't appeal to you, you're just onto the next one. And you can easily just skim past stuff that your friends have posted.
Sure.
I've done that so many times where I've just been like, yep. Yeah. It's the same stuff. And I'm not going, oh, this person has done something. Click into that post and look at it.
Yes.
It's so easy to just skim past that. And I think that's happens to a lot of other people.
And back to the art thing, if you were to do that, you're not doing your work any justice doing that. It's actually a level of disconnect that you're actually doing yourself an injustice, because whatever the percentage of people that will just tap past it is, it doesn't really matter if they have looked at it or not, but for you to even offer it up like that as a short, sharp thing isn't doing it justice. It's much better to maybe attract people in a different way and let them take the time to actually find it themselves and experience it.
You've got to get people out of their house and come and look at things every day. That's the only way you're going to get people to seriously engage with you, because another downside to Instagram, sounds like a plus side, but I sort of perceive it as a downside, is that the fact that you can make a post or post something to your story, and someone can then and there just tap and like send you an emoji. Like, again, I'm being a hypocrite because I have done this, but this is like someone posts something that they've done or made or whatever, been a part of, and you can just go write a reply, send a heart.
And you've reduced it to that.
Yeah. You haven't really gone,
and I'm guilty
hey,
of that
this is
too.
great. Like, I hope you're well. Like,
see, I'm the only good thing about probably what I do is I just refrain from probably that level of interaction anyway. Like, if it's something I like, it would have to be something pretty special, and then I would send maybe a direct message.
Yeah,
I'd
for
say.
sure.
So I try and refrain from just your basic like or like a thing. But you're so right. The fact that that's built into the program proves our attention span, how damaging it is. Like, and that clickbait, we're only in it for a short thrill. We don't actually care. Or the majority of people don't actually care, and that's why the button's there.
That's right. That's my point exactly. Like the clickbait thing, you're tying into your people that you, creatives that you know, friends of yours that are making things. You just get caught up in that system.
And you've reduced them down to a 1 second emoji.
It's
pretty bad.
Millennials' attention spans are a worry.
Totally.
So, yeah. All right, Casey. I think we've done plenty of time here. Again, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you being here.
Oh, it's been awesome. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and it feels good to get out of the house and do something a bit different.
It's
cool.
definitely.
I think we need more of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, hopefully it's going to be a good platform for other artists to come in and talk and do that sort of stuff. So
awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No worries. We'll have you on again in the future, I'm sure.
Sounds good.
Awesome, man. Thanks. Bye, everyone.